Welcome to our class today.
Boys.
Malchus Shamayim and Malchus Shamayim, and we said the two unities. And I already got in trouble. Someone said it smacks of the Trinity. Yeah, I replied back, Chaz v'sholom. It's the most Jewish topic there is. In fact, it's really what completely separates us from the Umos Olam who know what's flying. There's the Umos Olam divided into two camps, yeah? The ones, the majority who've got no idea, yeah? And then there's especially in this generation, there's a bunch of chevra who have big musagim in Yichud Hashem and in etc. This is what they've got. Even the ones that, from what I've learned, these people who've got tremendous musagim in Yichud Hashem, they have musagim in what's called Yichud Elah, but they don't have musagim. They don't have any concept of Yichud Tatar, the lower unity, which is what that's called Malchus Shamayim. That is Baruch Shem Kavod Malchus Le'olam V'ed. Okay, so we're going to try and explain what that actually is, and obviously that's very apropos for this time of year because we've got Rosh Hashanah coming up. Okay, so so the first thing to understand is how this world works in regards to getting stuff done. So always the idea of if somebody punches somebody and they have to go to Beis Din, to claim in the Beis Din that I'm not culpable, it was my hand that hit them. I'm not culpable, it's my hand that hit them. Yeah, that's a completely ridiculous thing to say. But let's move further now. If somebody hits somebody with a stick, and now they come to Beis Din and they say, it was the stick, that would also be ridiculous. What about if they used the stick to kind of prise off a big rock above someone that fell on them and killed them, and then they said it wasn't me, it was the rock, and it wasn't even me there. There was the rock, then there was the stick, then there was the hand, then there was me. I'm already 4 stages removed from the Aveira, so I'm for sure not culpable. Again, that would be ridiculous. So what's actually happening in that sense? Okay, you have to understand that. We also want to understand if somebody could remember these questions, because I usually forget to answer the questions at the end. The question of when the thing that we say all the time, in Kaddish, Amen Yehei Shmei Rabba Mavrach Le'olam Le'olam. What's that about? Why did Chazal choose that Yidden would just be saying that all the time? Shalom Aleichem. What's your name? Shmulik. Say it. What's that? Shalom Aleichem. Why did Hashem choose those words that Yidden would literally just be saying all the time? They could choose any words. Those words are obviously the most fundamental words out of everything, that we're saying that the whole time. What does that mean? Amen Yehei Shmei Rabba Mavrach Le'olam Le'olam. And then what's this concept of two unities, Yehuda Elah and Yehuda Tatar, that the Zohar talks about, that the Alter Rebbe and Shaykh Remuna is Masbir Ba'arichas. What is the inyan of the higher Yichud and the lower Yichud? Yeah, and this is about as Jewish as a Shia gets. Yeah, so you should just relax. Okay. So first, to understand Yehuda Elah, you can't really understand Yehuda Elah, but that's much easier than Yehuda Tatar. Much easier. Yehuda Elah would be comparable to white light or a seed. A nice way of understanding it is a seed, or white light. They're both white. Take a seed, take an open apple, peel off the brown creeper around the seed, and you'll see there's it kind of looks like a holy. You know what I mean? It looks like it looks holy, like sacred. That little white thing, and you could pierce it with your nail if you had nails, unlike me. Yeah, you could pierce it with your nail and open it up, and you would just see more white. It's just white. Yeah, there's no divisibility. You don't see any trees. You don't see any leaves or bark or roots or fruit or any remez to any of what that's going to become. Yeah, it's just white. So too with white light. White light is a composition of all of the frequencies of light, all of the colors of light. When you add all the colors together, yeah, they become white. So if you were to take out red from white light, you would have a different color light. It wouldn't be red anymore. It would be a different color. I don't know what color that you have to ask.
It wouldn't be white anymore.
Sorry?
It wouldn't be white anymore, it would be red.
It would for sure be red. It would be the opposite of red, I think. It would be like that'd be was it be cyan maybe? There's a whole thing you can look it up very easily. It's very quick to find out. The point is though that we're talking about a unity, a oneness that has no features to it. It's featureless, but it has the potential, so to speak. Meaning it's featureless, but it's really like in its expression it will not be featureless. This is very important to understand that when we're talking about Yichud Ilah and Yichud Tatar, they're not two separate things. There's not like the Yichud above and the Yichud below. We're talking about the same thing at different stages of what happens. So the concept of Yichud Ilah is just basically nothing. Just a oneness. Like white light. Yeah, like the seed, where there's no differentiation, there's no fragmentation, there's no separation, and the keyword is there's no multiplicity. There's no concept of more than one. You break open the seed, you crack it open again, it's just one. You don't see anything more than that, yeah? It's just a moshel. Okay, so that's the concept of in a sense, pre-creation. Because creation begins with the letter Beis, which is the inyan of multiplicity, of riboy. So Beis is the creation begins with Beis. Yeah, that's Bereshis bo Elokim es hashamayim v'es ha'aretz. That is the whole inyan of that oneness becoming really a multiplicity, but that's a dangerous thing to say because now we're going to go back to what we were speaking about before. Yeah, so the inyan of if I use my hand to hit someone, yeah, I'm culpable. If I use a stick, to knock off if I use my hand, yeah, to pick up a phone and call a hitman, yeah, to murder somebody, I'm still highly culpable. I don't know if I'm as culpable, but I would still get in a lot of trouble. I think I would still be, if you had a lawyer around, you could find that out. But Lamaisa, if somebody hires a hitman, I would assume that they'd also go to prison. Maybe. But in regards to that, I don't think that's still... he obviously has the ability to say no, but if you're coercing him with money or whatever it is, I don't know the halacha there, but you understand that, you know, if I found out that somebody was trying to kill me, I wouldn't be worried about the hitman so much. I'd be worried more about the person trying to kill me. That hitman doesn't... I'm irrelevant to that. Either way, but we understand. So what's happening here? So this is how to understand it. It's a very easy thing to understand once you think of it. And this is really the root of Chassidus. Because Chassidus is Lifnim Mishur Sadin. As we say over and over and over, yeah, this and these have got nothing at all to do with Chassidus. Yeah, Lifnim Mishur Sadin means going to the root, understanding at the essence of what things are. Not what they look like they are, but what they really are. Yeah? So now, I want to drink, okay? So I want to drink, so I pick up my cup and I bring it to my mouth and I take a drink. Okay, so we would say that my hand brought me the cup. It's a very logical thing to say. However, if I wanted to drink that drink, I forgot your name. What's your name?
Danielle.
Danielle. I would ask Danielle to pass me the drink, and you would now hand me the drink, and now I'll drink. So that sounds like that now Danielle bought me the drink. Yeah. What about if there was a bottle of water that I wanted from Tel Aviv? So I'll call up now DHL, and I would ask them to bring me the bottle of water. So now it would sound like DHL bought me the drink. Yeah. That's what it looks like on the pshat, but you realise that that's not what happened bichlal. In every situation, my Ratzon brought me the drink. Now the first stage of my Ratzon has immediate access to my hand, yeah? So I can bring my drink to me very easily. If my Ratzon is stronger than your Ratzon, yeah, or you decide for whatever reason that you will allow my Ratzon to overwhelm your Ratzon, then my Ratzon will not just flow into my hand, my Ratzon will flow into you, and you'll bring me the drink. Yeah, and if I pay DHL their money, whatever they want, yeah, then they become bottle to me, and my Ratzon flows into them. And in truth, it's really, when you think of it like as a chassid, you realise that DHL is not doing anything. Your Ratzon is reaching out of you like an octopus. You know what's a really good mashal? Shamtuya. What's a really good mashal is the way an ant colony works. An ant colony is composed of, like 1 million ants, let's say. And they actually send out, so to speak, like tentacles. That line of ants is like tentacles of the organism, which is called an ant colony. It's an organism. It's really an organization. Yeah, an organization and organism are basically the same. It's the same thing. What's the difference between an organism and an organization? The point, an organism means that the ants as an organization, yeah, they could not live without each other. You have a whole bunch of different kinds of ants, yeah. You have like worker ants, you have the builder ants. I think they're workers and builders. You have the foragers, you have the warriors, you have the nurses. You have like the queen ant's like a different zach, but you have like the queen ant also, yeah. All of those ants coexist together interdependently, meaning not one ant can live. If we got rid of the nurses, yeah, well then nothing's doing at all. If we got rid of the foragers, the ones who bring in the food, then everyone's going to starve. If we got rid of the builders, yeah, then there wouldn't be any place to live, and everyone would. And if we got rid of the warriors, they'd all get attacked and killed. So no ant could go it alone. You can't get an ant that lives alone. It just doesn't work like that. Yeah, it's clear. So every ant lives in an interdependent reality. What's the difference? That's called an organization. What's the difference then between an organism and an organization?
An organism has a single brain.
The organization also really, if it's a healthy organization, it also has a what? Absolutely. A good organization, yeah, which we're going to talk about in depth as well to Shem, is unified, absolutely unified. And it's living by that single brain, if you want to say like that.
It's better, I would say.
What is?
It's better than an organism.
An organization better than an organism?
An organization is separate, even though they can't live separate each other. They're separate units.
That's it. An organization is just less compacted. It's literally less compacted. I am an organism, yeah? So I'm made of 50 trillion odd cells that are compacted so tightly that it gives the appearance of a singularity. If you take open a microscope, you'll realise that I'm not a singularity at all. I'm composed of 50 trillion little whatever they are, cells. Not one cell could go it alone.
Not one cell can have the theory either. In an organisation, there's definitely room for people to have their own, even if
not in the concept of the ant colony, because they don't have. And I agree with you, but also you can have in a human body. Yeah, unfortunately, as we know, yeah, you can have a cell that develops its own agenda. Yeah, we know what that is. So that's the concept of an organisation and a organism is the same Inyan, just it's more compact. I'm sure if you've got more microscopic, you could find different, create more chilukim. Either way, So now, when I send out my hand to bring my cup back to me, yeah, there's obviously no multiplicity there. There's just me and my hand. Yeah, you could say. I mean, when you really think about it, though, that if I was to lose a hand, yeah, chas v'shalom, I would still be me. Wouldn't have a hand. It's not. You understand? So I do actually have a hand. I'm not a hand. Yeah. So there's a oneness, but it's not that I am my hand is me. There's a oneness between me and my hand. So now when I ask you to bring me the water, now there becomes a oneness between you and me. When I ask you to ask him, yeah, then there's a oneness between you, me, and him. If I ask you to orchestrate a whole team of people who are going to do, you understand how it works? That's my Ratzon flowing out of me and spreading out in whatever way. That's like what you could call like a big person. A big person is somebody who has the ability. It doesn't mean that he's charismatic. It could be. It doesn't mean that he is intense, although he could be. What a big person, I understand it, really means is it's a person who's Ratzon, who has the skill and the yoichus, whatever you want to say, to have his Ratzon go out. He's like a conductor, which is that's a power. Like you see by Donald Trump, yeah. He's a leader, you know. For better or for worse, you like him, I don't care. Yeah, but if he walked into this room right now, even without an entourage, yeah, the room would be in a very different situation. Put it that way. Yeah. What? For sure, you should stand up. But
would stand up.
You would, yeah. You probably wouldn't not be able to not stand up. Yeah, agreed. That's a man who has a quote. Forget him as president, yeah, as a leader and as an entrepreneur in a business, leading teams of people. You need this energy that can, however you do it. Some people do it in different ways. You know, you can trump someone. That's interesting. Yeah, you can trump them, or you can seduce them. Yeah, Americans say I think seduce. Yeah.
That would be the options.
What?
That would be the options. Could someone just want to carry out his Ratzon because he loves the person?
No. Well,
because he just feels this energy.
It becomes his Ratzon.
I want to do.
What you're saying is beautiful. What you just touched there is the essence of Rosh Hashanah, mamash. But the way you do it is you either trump. This is the two ends of the spectrum. Do I understand it? Yeah. Is you either trump them, you dominate them, and you get them to do what you want. You coerce them to do what you want, or you seduce them. Not in like a bad way. I don't mean seduce. Seduce just meaning. Yeah, but not. But I don't mean it in that sense. Yeah, I mean.
You mean sell them on your vision? Is that what you mean?
Yeah, it's like how do you translate the word chinuch? Just quickly, without thinking. Education, yeah? It depends if you like it or not. If you like the information, call it education. If you don't like the information, call it manipulation. That's it. I've developed this amazing method of chinuch. You know, we put the kids in the class, we have these funny little videos, we have these things that they do, and before you know it, after a week, their mama's know Mishnayos back to front. You're like, wow, amazing, yeah? You've developed a powerful method of education, yeah? What about if it was, what do we say about with our cousins who do the same thing to breed, little guys with balaclavas and automatic weapons? That's called manipulation. Yeah, they've developed, powerful methods of inculcating an entire society to hate us. Mamash. What?
You say it's manipulation because you don't like it. They say it's education.
Of course, that's what I'm trying to say. So the definition of chinuch, it depends if you like the information or not. It's either manipulation or it's education. So when I say seduce someone, I mean educate them. That's what I mean. Yeah, I don't mean that you like slimy and slippy and you work. I mean that you like you said. Who said it? You bring them into your vision. You said that.
Daniel said it.
You said that what?
Daniel said it.
Either way, but the idea of you bring them into your vision, you help them realize that this is actually a good thing, yeah, and then they want it. That's called seduce. That's what I mean by seduce. I know it doesn't have the right connotations. It sounds like if you did it like that, it would be more like You can work it out yourself. But there's the idea of dominating someone, and I could get you to do by, if I'm stronger and bigger than you, whatever it is, or I've got more, resources that could inflict pain upon you, etc. Then I could dominate you, and I could trump you, so to speak. The other option is that I could help you want to do it yourself. Obviously, that's preferable from my perspective, because then I'm going to get all of your kelim. I'm going to get all. If you want to do it yourself, then you're much more in.
Yeah,
So that's interesting. What?
You can take someone with words, but he may be listening to you because not necessarily you wanted it, but you sort of your power of persuasion was
So that would be
Is
seduced.
that dominant?
Well, kind of basically, you work it out. It doesn't matter what it's called. I don't know, but you realise that's not the same as if I sit you down and I'm like, listen, and I tell you this project that we're involved in, and you're just like, wow, that's awesome. I want a part of that. I'm getting that with the project that I'm involved in right now. I'm getting people calling me the whole time, just like, Shmuel, how can I help? Can I be a part of that? So that's not me doing it. That's just people are getting inspired by this idea. That's great. That's how real organisations are. And if you look at good organisations, like good meaning they work well. I don't know if they're good organisations, but Google and Apple and Amazon and all these massive organisations. Yeah, the culture inside the organisation is such that everybody is deeply identified with the actual organisation. That's what they do. Go to a Google. I've seen videos of these Google, offices. They're like, you can't not feel part of that. That's what they're trying to do. They want to, because they need your most vital energies and talents. So you've got no. They create the whole environment that they get that out of you, meaning they seduce you as opposed to trump you. Go to a pizza shop, in Bar Ilan, and you'll see that there's no seduction going on there whatsoever. Yeah, that 16-year-old kid is being trumped by the owner of the again and again and again by the owner of the pizza shop. Yeah, there's no. If the owner realised a little bit, I've done this I'm only involved in teeny little business. Yeah, but in my own teeny little business, if you can chap what more you can get from your employees if you stop trumping them and start trying to, again, seduce isn't the right word, but maybe convince or empower, whatever it is, to give them your vision, however it is, to train them, to be mechanech them, to educate them, etc. Yeah, you wouldn't trump anyone. You would realise that every time you trump someone, you actually lost them a little bit further. Yeah, if you get them to do what you want by coercing them, they just stepped away from you. Yeah. Whereas if you get them to do what you might take a little bit longer, it's the long road that's the short road. Yeah. But it's quite a long road, but it's a much, much shorter road. When you get people, I've been successful in this in my business, Baruch Hashem. When you've got people in your business who are you don't have to do anything. You don't have to. You can just let them go and let them take care of things, and it works. I can tell you that from my own experience very much, really. So.
Experience it in your home, your wife and kids also.
That's the ultimate organisation, that's for sure. That's the ultimate Malchus. That is your Malchus. Your Malchus is, your Ikar Malchus is your wife and children. That's your empire. That's what we're going to talk about. That's exactly the Inyan of Dir B'Tachtonim. That's the exact Inyan of Malchus Shamayim. That is what the avodah of Rosh Hashanah is. That's what Hashem. So this idea of the organisation, yeah. This is a really deep idea, and you've got a beautiful symbol, which is everywhere. The symbol of a tree. Okay, a tree has a multiplicity above. Yeah, it has a unity in the middle, and then it has a multiplicity of roots at the bottom. So if you were to rip a tree out of the ground, it would look like a kind of a barbell, A big reboy at the top, a big reboy at the bottom, and a unity in the middle. By the way, this is one of the secrets of the snare by Moshe. What's a snare? What's the difference between a snare and an eight and an elan?
The whole thing is there.
The unity doesn't exist. There's just a reboy and a reboy. There's no concept of the trunk. That's the difference. That's a very, very deep idea. Anyway, 1 minute. just
Wait, there's no trunk at all?
sorry.
Wait, there's no trunk at all in a bush?
No, I mean, depending on the bush, I suppose, but the difference is that a tree has a big space of a unity between a bush is just the bush is on the ground, and then it does go into a point, and then it spreads out again, but that point isn't visible.
But that's my point, there is a point and it could have.
It does, yeah. It doesn't just, yeah, for sure. It does go into a point, but that's the difference. That's why it's called a bush, because that point, it's basically that the reboy above is cushioned to the reboy below. Well, they are connected to each other. Yeah, there's no trunk. There's no visible unity in that you don't see it. It looks just like a big bush and a bunch of roots. And anyway, that's not on the point right now. This is the idea. When you think about, let me give out these papers, okay? Excuse me for the bad printing. I went to buy Macquarie ink from the printer shop. Guess how much it costs for four colour. You can keep these if you want.
265.
What?
265.
265 shekel. 265 plus another zero. It was like 2,300 shekel for a set of ink for my Hewlett Packard.
Laser?
Oh, laser
It's
color.
a laser colour
Laser
thing.
color,
Yeah.
ah.
Yeah, laser. I was like, what? Are you joking? I was like, more than what the printer cost. Oh, that's all. Yeah. Okay, so look, this is.
Got it cheaper online.
Sorry? Yeah, but then he told me, I don't know if you're saying the truth, but that it doesn't, the ink cartridges have a different chip to the, if you have an Israeli printer, you need a different chip.
They took you for a ride there, I think.
Anyway, okay. So look, this is something that I made. Can we just fold over, or at least cover over, from Google, where it says Google at the top in the middle? If you fold over the paper, it'll be helpful. Yeah? So don't look above that. You probably see it already. Don't look above it.
With
Yeah?
Google included in the bottom?
Just so that Google, where it says Google here, so you fold it over at this point, and then we won't get involved in what's above. Yeah.
Leave Google.
So
Leave Google or fold Google.
leave Google. It doesn't really matter. You get the idea anyway. Okay. So now, what's this unity? Why? How comes this unity is? What's the connection between the tree and this concept of unity of the organization? So when you think about Google, it makes a lot of sense. Okay. So Google is one company. Yeah, I know we should have really folded it Alphabet actually. Whatever. Alphabet, you can go one up. It doesn't matter. But Google is Alphabet is one company. Yeah. But Alphabet, who owns Google. Alphabet owns a bunch of different companies. So we've got here DeepMind, Waze, Google, Calico, and Sidewalk Labs. Yeah? And there's obviously a bunch of other businesses. Those are called subsidiary businesses. So you've got the company Alphabet that now divides into, let's just say, 5 sub-companies. Now, for sure, Google is one. Yeah, is that an accurate statement? Google is one? This is not good.
Mm-hmm.
1 minute, sorry. Yeah, so for sure. If I just move that. Is that better? I'm sorry about this. Sorry. Anyway, so for sure, the concept of Google is one. Yeah, we would all agree with that statement. It's one. It's a unity. Yeah, let's just say it's functioning really, really well. Google is one. Okay. However, we know that Google divides now into. Oh, sorry, it wasn't Waze. It was Waymo. So Google now divides into Android, Gmail, YouTube, Waze, and AdWords. Yeah? You can imagine that I know that each one of those companies has its own building and its own location, etc. Yeah? So you've got Google, which is one, but it's actually composed of, let's just say, 5 companies. Again, I know it's much more, but this is what this chart is, okay? So Google is composed of 5, but it's really one. Yeah, let's take YouTube. YouTube as a company would, for sure, you could refer to that as a oneness. It's one. Yeah. However, YouTube is composed of, it's hard to see, content creator relations, research and development. These are different divisions: technical support, content moderation, and etc. Yeah. So the technical support department, yeah, that's a division. That would be considered one. However, the technical support divides down into a whole bunch of other things, and data management and storage solutions. That's its own department. That would be considered one. Yeah, that now divides into etc., storage, engineering facility, data processing and analytics faculty, yeah, data security and compliance, etc. The data processing and analytics faculty, which is a faculty, is also one. And that breaks down into units, yeah, a bunch of units. One of those units is the user behavior analytics unit. That would also be one. Yeah, but that breaks down into a bunch of things where you get one of that into different teams. So the personalization algorithms team, the content engagement analytics team, yeah, the viewer engagement analytics team. That team would be considered a oneness, yeah? But that breaks down into resources. So every team is composed of office space and environment, equipment and tools, personnel, software analytical tools, collaboration, interaction, etc. Yeah? But the personnel is a concept of one. But all the personnel, that's composed of a whole different bunch of people. It's got Jenny, Tom, Gary, Sandra, and Stephen, yeah? But Gary is a oneness, yeah? He's one. And Gary breaks down into different biological systems. I think there's 12 or 13 systems, yeah? You've got the skeletal system, you've got the muscular system, digestive system, nervous system, cardiovascular system. Anyone just for fun wants to add in the extra 7 systems? You have the reproductive system, you have the urinary system,
Nervous system.
you have the nervous system, you have the lymph, the muscular system. Anyway, the what one? The muscular, you said? Vascular. I think that comes on
The
cardiovascular.
cardiovascular is actually a combination
The
of two,
respiratory
the cardiac
system.
system and the vascular system.
Nah. Either way, so you've got all these different systems, yeah? So let's just choose the digestive system. That's one. That's a oneness. But the digestive system is made out of different organs, yeah? Stomach, small intestine, mouth, colon, pancreas. Yeah, take the mouth. The mouth is one, but it's composed of teeth, a palate, a tongue, salivary glands, lips and cheeks, yeah? The tongue is one, but the tongue is composed of taste buds and palatine and I don't know this stuff, yeah? But each taste bud is one, yeah, which is made of taste receptors, etc. It goes down and down and down until it becomes atoms, and then it goes down into subatomic particles. And I personally don't see why it would stop there.
God would be somewhere in the energy.
If what?
God would be in the energy. I mean, God is everywhere, but if you divide it all the way down, wouldn't you get to some sort of...
I don't think you need to divide it all the way down.
Yeah, I mean, God is in all those things, but...
This is what we're learning right now.
Underneath.
Well, but the energy is really coming from above.
Does it go into one at the end?
Wait, so listen, so anyway, it just goes down. Like I
This is a
said,
great way to explain parts of him.
what?
This is a great way to explain parts of him.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. But we can now talk about things that really exist in our we've got Mashalim that are so fabulous. We've got AI that helps us understand these things now. That is really the key. The key that I believe now to AI is remembering that that you need a crane to lift something heavier that you can lift, yeah? You can now use AI to help understand things that you couldn't generally understand. People think AI is going to make you stupider, more stupid. I see it the exact opposite. If you already have like a modicum of intelligence, you're going to use AI to make you much, much, much more intelligent. Anyway, AI is helping us understand this right now. This was all done, I used AI to help me break this down. I could have done it in a more posh way, but I think it leaves more of an impact when you have this whole thing in front of you. Anyway, the end of the chart says neutrons, electrons, and protons, yeah? But I'm sure that it just goes on forever. If I was the creator and I could just make, why is Hashem? Well, because it's really, really, really small now. You can't make anything smaller. Hashem's like, what are you talking about? I can make it go smaller forever and ever and ever. And you know what? Why not? It doesn't cost me anything. Just make it smaller and smaller. So when I was a kid, yeah, electrons were like the smallest things. Yeah, but now they know that, electrons are much massive compared to the kind of things we know now. And they'll find, I'm sure they'll find it gets smaller and smaller. Anyway, it doesn't even matter. Yeah? Now, but the point is, do you understand how this explains the concept of the Elan, of the tree? This is the concept of the tree. Now, Google is a oneness, yeah, we said. Yeah, but Google is really belongs in a greater oneness, which is called Alphabet. Alphabet is the parent company of Google. Now, before we go up even further, yeah, the concept of the tree is like this: is that when you're looking at let's say you're looking at YouTube, okay, Chas v'shalom. Yeah, we should never look at YouTube. But you're looking at YouTube on the graph here, yeah. You look at YouTube, yeah. You realize that YouTube is a oneness. But YouTube is embedded within Google, yeah? But Google itself is part of a multiplicity. You understand? So Google is a multiplicity of Alphabet, yeah? So we said we've got DeepMind and Waymo and Google, etc., yeah? So you've got YouTube that is a oneness, that is part of Google, but Google itself is part of a reboy. And then obviously YouTube divides out into a wondrous reboy, yeah? If you wanted to take, this is the amazing thing, because I was trying to show how you could, I've spent a lot of time making this chart. What's really amazing though, is if you think about it, from the second you go from like here, yeah? I've only chosen 5 each thing. You realize that each one explodes into, like, even from the beginning, it explodes into, hundreds, and then into thousands, and then into millions. And imagine do you understand what this, you couldn't actually make this chart. The chart would end up looking like kind of like a circle immediately, because the reboy is so intense. You with me?
I mean, it wouldn't be a circle because it would be unlimited. It would just be everything.
To graphically see it.
Yeah, you had to edge it somewhere, but it really would just.
No, but yeah, I hear what you're saying, but to actually see it graphically, the way the computer was doing it, it couldn't keep going out, so it bent it back in, and it just didn't show the picture. But really, you should understand that this divides out. The first one splits into hundreds, and then each one of those, as it gets like what divides into more, yeah, the divisions of Google, yeah, or the services and products of Google, or the amount of electrons in a oxygen atom. Or that's actually not that's not so much. But the idea of the amount of atoms in a molecule, yeah, which is a lot. So it's just not that many again. But like molecules in a cell, whatever it is, the idea of these things spilling out more and more. The pyramid is the width of the pyramid is endless. The height of the pyramid is actually tiny, but the width of the pyramid is extremely vast.
So does that relate to the tree?
What?
You said the tree was, if you're looking at it.
Yeah, so that it doesn't. That yeah. So the idea of the tree is that you've got YouTube, which is a oneness. That's the trunk. Yeah, but YouTube is embedded in Alphabet. Sorry, in Google, which itself is part of a reboy. So that, in a sense, would be the image of the branches. But YouTube itself divides out into other businesses and subsidiary departments and faculties and teams and people.
You mean on the top and on the bottom?
So exactly. So there's a unity in the middle, and that is encrouched between a reboy above and with a reboy below. It's just a helpful way of remembering this idea, because it's a very important idea. So Hashem created trees to help us remember this idea. Anyway, okay. So now, how does it work? Yeah, because you would think when we get to Alphabet, I mean, you've seen the graph now, so it makes more sense. But when you get to Alphabet, the way when I did this last time, it was folded over, and you couldn't see above this. Yeah. So then I said, when you get to Alphabet, what's that? What's the reboy above Alphabet? And the Riboy above alphabet, I mean, you could maybe touch it in different ways, but what I've just said is the Department of Commerce in America, the American Department of Commerce. It's part of that system. It's part of that organization. It has to adhere to those rules. It has to follow the agenda of the Department of Commerce. Let's say, again, I'm making this up. Just try and understand as opposed to not understand. What?
Officially.
What? Officially, exactly. Yeah, or like some kind of offshore, offshore thing in like near Ireland, so they can get away from paying taxes. Yeah, the Department of Commerce is part of the United States of America. The United States of America is probably the biggest organization in the world. That is a accurate translation of the word Malchus, organization. That is a really helpful translation of the word Malchus. Malchus Shamayim means Hashem's organization, Inc. Or probably LLC, actually. Is it LLC now? What? It's a sole owner, that's LLC.
Liability.
What?
Sole prop.
So exactly. So the United States of America is a real, that's an organization. It's a tremendous organization. A huge organization. If you think Google's a big organization, yeah, look at the United States of America. Google's just a drop. Google probably accounts for what of the GDP of America. Maybe do you think it hits 1%?
Sure.
Google.
Oh,
interesting. I don't know, but it's a significant part of the organization, but it's absolutely minuscule. You wouldn't see it on a map unless you started looking for it. Yeah.
I know who we could ask.
Yeah, for sure. But not in this. Not in this room. So now, what does America? What's the organization that America falls under? Right now, that's what a Malchus is, the end of the road. That's what it means, a Malchus. When I talk about my Malchus, I'm referring to what's underneath, yeah? But a real Malchus, an actual Malchus, the reason why it's called a Malchus and not an organization is because it's not a part of a multiplicity. The king is the king, and if he wants to hang out with the other kings, yeah, he can if he wants, but there's no like symbiotic interdependence between them. Yeah, that's what it means a Malchus, and that's why really deep point is in the Tanya. The beginning of Tanya, he explains the makeup of the nefesh of Akis and then the makeup of the nefesh of Bahamis. Yeah, the nefesh of Akis, he says it's a hishtalshelus, a kind of an outgrowth, so to speak, a further expression of the Esa Spheres Kedoshis, the 10 spheres. The spheres, the concept, if you ever spend a few minutes learning any Kabbalah, you'll realize that, more easy to understand in Hasidus, is you'll realize that the spheres they can't exist independently. They're a united, they're a system, they're an interdependent structure. Yeah, it's not like there's Chesed and then there's Gevura. Chesed and Gevura are different expressions of Das, or however you want to break it down, yeah, and then they come together when they are fused in the right. They channel, I suppose, into Tiferes, and then Tiferes is it gives birth to Netzach and Hoid, yeah, which is the same inyanim above, but now kalape the other, yeah, and then the tool that is used. Excuse the expression, because it's actually the Ava of the man, yeah, that's Yesoid, which is the way that Netzach and Hoid are given over to the female, to the Malchus, yeah. So it's all one thing. It comes out, just as a side point, again, sorry to say this, but this is really helpful to understand what Netzach and Hoid is. Netzach and Hoid are considered the movements of Tashbish, yeah, where Netzach would be the movement towards, and Hoid would be the movement away, and that explains to you what Yesoid is. The Yesoid is the kli that Netzach and Hoid use to express themselves. That's a very helpful thing to understand. That's a side point. Anyway, sorry for being so graphic. So now the Tanya introduces the 10 spheres as an interdependent system. How does the Tanya introduce the 10 powers of the animal soul, the human soul? It calls them the Esa Kissendim Savusa, the 10 crowns of impurity. Doesn't call them that. It doesn't say they're Hishtaushas and the Esa Spheres Kedoshas, which I mean because they're actually a mirror image of. What's the difference? What's the fundamental difference? This is extremely important to understand this, yeah? The fundamental difference between the structure of your humanity and the structure of your Yiddishkeit. This is the whole thing. Understanding this is the whole thing. Why did the Rebbe call them the Esa Kissen de Masavusa, the 10 crowns of impurity, as opposed to the 10 spheres of Kedoshas, which work as a oneness? Because crowns, there's a connotation of a Malchus, which means an independence. So the very structure of your lower self is fragmented. It's 10 disparate, fragmented parts that get on with each other because they kind of have to. And they work, in the best way they can work it out. But the essence of your lower self, that's the essence of your lower self. And that's the reason why we screw up in so many ways. The essence of our lower self is fragmented.
At all levels?
On the very essence of it, for sure. The very essence of it, so for sure, on the outer levels. The essence of the Nefesh Bahamis, again, there is maybe more high-res ways we could talk about this, but this is a correct statement to the best of my knowledge. The essence of your lower self is fragmented.
Fragmented means disconnected from...
No, it just means disconnected within its own self.
But ultimately,
that's
connected to the source.
So that's what I said. If you turn up the resolution higher, you'll get. But
otherwise, it couldn't exist.
For sure. But we're right now, and then go back to everything. Go back to them. Then there's nothing to talk about. So it depends what level you're talking about. That's what I said. Like you could go to higher res. So now you've got the very essence of the animal soul, of the human soul, is fragmented. Which means when you're fragmented, you see a fragmented world. That's how it works. That's how you don't see how it is, you see how you are. Yeah, a person who has achieved some level of internal integrity and of cohesiveness and of holistic oneness, yeah, they experience a world of oneness to varying degrees. The more one you are internally, the more one your world becomes outside. Not even just that you experience it that way. On an actual, on like a mystical, hooky spooky level, yeah, it will actually start becoming more of a oneness. Like everyone knows, the most dysfunctional people that you know, yeah, look at their lives. They're always dealing with crazy stuff. Dysfunctional people are always dealing with crazy things. That's how I see it. Yeah, they're always in the middle of some kind of, you can't believe what's going on right now. And I don't have that so much, And the people that I know who are more worked out, their lives. I'm not saying that you don't get crazy things as well. But you see, there's definitely a relationship between how internally fragmented you are and how externally fragmented the world that you live in is.
So you go in the car in the morning and you're all like tensed up. I found this. Then there's always traffic and the lights are always red.
And it keeps, and it expands.
It's just getting worse and worse. But if you're calm, then often, and it's always, things just sort of weave into place. Instead of beeping the guy you're in, and things will flow. Maybe that's the word.
I'll read you where the Rebbe says that. All the Rebbe says is just this. Gives you a little insight. This is a class unto itself, just for about a minute, not even. The Rebbe says, just to understand what this little book actually is, the end of chapter 2, he says, everything, all the mitzvahs that it does, and everything, everything comes to that levush. Afilu hashefa shenoisin lo min Shamayim. Even the shefa that comes in from Shamayim, hakol alidei levush zeh. What you just said was that, I mean, you would never know what that means when you just read it from that, yeah? But that levush he was talking about there is the levush of machshava, what I learned from my Rebbe, yeah? The levush of machshava, which is a gilui, the closest gilui, the first gilui of your own fragmented self, that draws the shefa that you experience. That's exactly what you just said. So when you're thinking in this broken, fragmented way, things get more and more broken and fragmented. That's how the world is, that it comes through that levush. So if you can say Shema Yisrael Hashem Elokeinu Hashem Echad, maybe that's the eitzah in the Gemara in Brochas to save yourself from Averas, yeah, maybe that's the panemius that, I never thought about that. But if you can bring your mind to a stillness and start to develop a unity in yourself, yeah, good chance that everything will start to kind of work itself out. I mean, what? Biduk. That's the panemius, actually, Biduk the panemius of what we just said there. That's the Rebbe. See, it's funny because the Tanya and the Rebbe, yeah, are like, in my mind, there was the source of it, and then there was the final expression of it. Those are those. In my mind, again, this is my own thoughts, yeah. But so the Rebbe gave it over in this encoded DNA style way that basically no one can get to it, yeah. But he gave it over with a Masorah that allowed people to access it, yeah. By the time it came to the Lubavitcher Rebbe, if you learn, I mean, I haven't spent much time learning his sichas, but I've learned a lot from my Rebbe who gives over his actual sichas, yeah. That when you hear the things that he says, yeah, the chidushim that he says, and you know Tanya really well, you'll realize that man is being so faithful to Tanya, it's unbelievable. And people say, where does it say this in Tanya? He's making stuff. A lot of, there's people who have timers on him, but where isn't it? But if you really understand the Oimika Tanya, that man was Kulu Tanya. He was Tanya Mamash. It was like he understood Tanya in a way that no one before him ever understood it. And then Yol Khan had a koyach hezbir that I think was more helpful, at least in my way I understand, was more helpful than how the Lubavitch Rebbe gave it over. So he wrote, a lot of it came through him, and then you've ended up with like Rav Manis Friedman as well, who's trying to develop these ideas and give them over to on an even lower level, and then we come at the bottom of that whole thing right now. That's what we're doing. So that was a side point. So we went off the topic. So now the point is, we said that the idea of the Malchus, if we go back a bunch of steps, is that's the end. That's a singularity. That isn't part of a multiplicity. Yeah? Even though it might be, it doesn't feel that it is. That's why it's called the Esa Kissin de Masavusa, because it's all fragmented and independent, as opposed to the Esa Spheres of Kadoshas that are interdependent. They all work with each other. So now America, the United States of America, is a Malchus. That's the end of the line. What's America part of? What? Well, it's another country, but it's not part of. It doesn't exist under another umbrella. There's not another umbrella thing. Yeah, this is the Inyan of Malchus. Huh?
United Nations.
Okay, you can say something like that. Either way.
No one is actually should the United Nations.
Yeah, either way. Let's not get caught up in the moshel. Yeah, this is the now. Let's just backtrack a minute, because we're going to add a little piece in, and everything's going to make sense. B'ezrat Hashem. Yeah, let's talk about Amazon because that's a nice, because we've got Jeff Bezos at the top. Yeah, we've got Jeff at the top. Yeah, clear. Jeff Bezos owns Amazon. So now, when that guy comes to your house, yeah, he comes out of the Amazon truck, yeah, and he hands you the useless headphones that you don't really need, or whatever you bought last time, yeah. When you really think about it, as a chassid, that's really Jeff Bezos handing you the headphones. It's really how it is. How many steps are there between you? Okay, there's a lot of steps. But just like if I use my hand, yeah, to flick the marble that fell down and banged that thing that struck the match that caused the fire, that then set the house on fire, etc. Yeah, like we said at the very beginning, I'm still culpable. Doesn't matter how many steps in the process. It could be at some point if those steps.
Is that what Chad Gadya is about? Is that what that song's about?
What?
Chad Gadya. Is that this?
Had Gadya?
Is the song Chad Gadya this? Is that what it's for?
No,
I hear what you're saying. That's actually a great point.
I think it has a causation all the way to the first cause.
Go.
I think I'm going to look into that. Shkoyach. Something to think about. Baruch Hashem.
You're marshal the thing.
The whole. I mean, this is the panemius of. I mean, this idea is not just a. This is everything. Like in your family and on a micro, macro, cosmic, nano level. It's the same structure. Either way, what's really happening when you understand it properly is Jeff Bezos, b'chvoide v'atzmoi, is stepping out of his van and giving you the headphones. He's melubush, yeah? His rotzon is melubush in Stan, yeah?
It's like a lahavdil. So there was a story where the Chabad Shluchim went to a guy who was in Hillel, and he said, "We come to you in the name of the Lubavitcher Rebbe, put you on tefillin." The man said that he couldn't believe that there was a man in the world who cared about him enough that he should wear tefillin. So when I heard that, I didn't understand. Like, maybe they were taught and educated, but was the Rebbe actually concerned about this guy? But the man who was receiving it, he or experienced or felt that, it had come from the Lubavitcher Rebbe. He was actually wanting you to put tefillin on.
Yeah.
I worry about you, that this is what...
And let me ask you a question. If the Lubavitcher Rebbe didn't get this bee in his bonnet about having Yidden do mitzvahs, would they be there in Mexico making this guy put on tefillin? That's the point. It's his rots, and that's the inyan of the tzaddik. That's really the inyan of the tzaddik, is that his rotzon flows through you. How does his rotzon flow through you? It's not by sitting there watching him at the tish. That's not how it works, the way I understand it. I could be wrong, I probably am wrong. But the way I understand it, that's not how it works. It doesn't even work by hanging around with him and by davening with him, yeah? You know how it works? It works by learning from him. That's how it works. That's why the Lubavitchers are so mamash dedicated to the Rebbe, because they're learning his stuff the whole time. It's not like the other Chassidus where I'm not passing judgment on the organisation, different people and stuff, but they're all of them are like the Lubavitcher's relationship to the Rebbe is very different to most other Chassidus, and that's predicated. The way I understand it is predicated on the fact that they are learning his words all the time, like Breslevers as well. Breslevers are more connected to Reb Nachman because they're learning his words the whole time. That's how Rotzon is passed on. Rotzon, the method of transmission of Rotzon is the oisius of. It's really not the oisius. The oisius contain the meaning, and within the meaning is contained the Rotzon. That's how it's packaged. That's how it transfers. That's called Masorah. So really, what's Masorah? That's called Rotzon Hashem. Packaged, the Torah, Rotzon Hashem got packaged into 600,000 oisius, yeah? However you divide them up, yeah? Rotzon Hashem got put, that was the miracle of all miracles. The Rotzon Hashem, the Rotzon of reality itself, got put into 600,000 letters, yeah? Those letters, so to speak, they actually didn't get put in 600,000 letters first. They got enclosed within the meaning of the Torah, yeah, the pneumius of the Torah, the concepts, so to speak, or the concept of the Torah. That concept of Torah, yeah, that's the oneness of the Torah, which we can't. That's not understandable, yeah. That divides now or expresses itself into lots of different concepts. And those expressed into more concepts, and eventually all those concepts can get contained in letters. Yeah, and that was given over to Moshe Rabbeinu, who received. That's why he was called Ish Elokim, because that's why Torah is called Lechem, because Lechem, what do? Lechem, you eat bread, it goes into your system and it becomes part of your goof. That's what Lechem is. That's the difference between mitzvahs and Torah. Mitzvahs is called Lechem, and Torah is called Levushim. So, all the way around. Torah is called Lechem, Mitzvahs is called Levushim. Yeah, the Maisa Mitzvah doesn't actually become you in a sense. It's more complicated than that, but what we're saying right now, that the lechem actually becomes part of you. So when you understand from your Rebbe, and he's understood from his Rebbe, who understood from his Rebbe, and that was the Chiddush of the Baal Shem Tov, we said, because the Baal Shem Tov was a Talmud of Achia Shaloni, however that works out, who lived 2,500 years before him. And Achia Shaloni heard Mipi Moshe, says the Rambam. He had tremendous Arichas Yomim, yeah? He lived for a very long time. And it says that Achia Shaloni heard Mipi Moshe, who heard Mipi Gavur. So the whole Inyan, the Pneumius of Chassidus, to understand it, is there was a lot of interruption in the Messiah from, say, 300 years ago back to the times of the destruction of the Beis HaMikdash. So Hashem gave us a chesed. Yeah, that chesed was called the Baal Shem Tov. The Baal Shem, but what was the real chesed of the Baal Shem Tov? Is that his Rebbe was a man who heard from Moshe himself. So really what it's meant to be in a sense is like an express elevator back to the Rabbanu Shalom. Understand? Anyway, so now that's what a Malchus is. Jeff Bezos spreads down through his presidents and managing directors and COOs and CFOs and CEOs and whatever OOs there is, yeah? And then they break down into the Hanhala, yeah, which then breaks down into the strategists and the whatever they are. And finally, you end up with the mailroom, yeah? And then you end up with the guy's hands and the computers and the trucks, yeah, and the products and whatever. But that's all him. That's all Jeff Bezos. He's massive when you think about it in that sense. He's huge. He spreads out in a massive way, yeah? That's the inyan of Malchus Shamayim, Lahavdil, Elef Alf Elafim Havdalas. That's what Rosh Hashanah is. See now, Jeff Bezos, yeah, B'chvoy Deva Atzmo is sitting in his throne in Silicon Valley, yeah? And he comes down all the way through, yeah? But Stanley is having a bad day, yeah? The guy in the mailroom. He's having a bad day. Yeah, his wife wasn't nice to him this morning, and one of his kids is doing some bad stuff, and he's got issues with his money and whatever. Yeah, and he's sitting there, and he just can't be bothered. And so he takes out his telephone, and he's just, I don't know, playing Angry Birds or looking at something he shouldn't be looking at. Yeah, and then Jeff Bezos walks in, and he sees him sitting there, and Jeff's like, Stan, what are you doing? You're on my clock right now. That's what Rosh Hashanah is. Rosh Hashanah is putting the phone away. Rosh Hashanah is remembering that you're part of a massive organization and you don't have a heter to sit there on your telephone. That's called being Mamlich Rabbanu Shalom.
I thought you were going to say, if Stanley's having a bad day, so there's nothing very much he can do about it. He's just gonna. There's no way he can really get to Jeff Bezos, and Jeff Bezos is not going to be really interested in helping him. But if Stanley was connected through Malchus Shamayim or whatever, or if we connected, if I'm having a bad day, then I actually can go straight to the source, who
your day can get better.
Uplift me and say, "Come on, you'll be okay. It'll be okay. It's going to be good."
The reason why I said bad day was just because most of us, we don't do what we're meant to be doing by not having a bad day. I was just giving Stan an excuse to. But even if you're a business owner, you have a business. No, see, if you have a business, everyone knows this. If they own a business, yeah, I don't care that you're having a bad day. I'm sorry. Every now and again you can have a bad day, but don't come into the office and mess around and bring everyone else down. You don't have that. You don't have that right. Like the analogy I've always given is is your printer. When you send a file to get printed, and on the little screen, the little screen on your printer, there's a picture of someone like, not right now, please leave me alone. Come, give me half an hour. Let me pull myself together. Yeah, and just to get the idea is that we are part of this. We are part of him. We're part of him. We're part of an organisation. That's that on a cellular level. That guy Stanley is called cancer. Then there's two kinds of cancer. There's the malignant one and there's the benign one. Yeah, benign is the good one, which is it's never good. But benign, what benign basically means in the moshel, Stanley is sitting there. Yeah, no one can see him, and he looks like he's on the computer, but he's daydreaming. Yeah, so he's not adding to the organization, but he's not damaging the organization anyway. No one is like learning to be schwach or what would be if Stan was there playing on his phone, yeah, and people looking at him, they could start feeling a little negative to him. What about if Stanley started stealing from the from the stock, the storeroom, whatever it is? That's mamash cancer. He's actually what?
Tell the other guy we should unionize.
Yeah. But listen to this. The higher up Stanley is in the company, see when Stanley's just in the mailroom and he's stealing, Devek and paper clips, yeah. And Nishka we'll get through that, not a problem, yeah. But if Stanley was very high up in the organisation and he was siphoning off real money into his offshore account in Switzerland, whatever it is, I don't know if you think you have an offshore account in Switzerland. But anyway, but he said that could bring the company to its knees, yeah. That's the point of when, depending on where you are, and that's the problem with Yidden. That's our problem. That's what the Nefesh Chaim says. That's the difference between the Umoy Sa'oila at the very beginning of the Nefesh Chaim. What does he say? He said, I read it in the Medrash the other day, and it's a little bit. So there's a machlokas if Titus or Russia, took a zona into the Kodesh Kedoshim and laid out a Sefer Torah, or he did the Maisa on the Mizbeach with a Sefer Torah. Yeah, either way, doesn't make it much better. Lemaisa, the way what Chaim Volozhin said, the way I understood it, is that causes more damage. A Yid who entertains one machshava causes more damage, incomparably more damage than what Titus Rasha did. Because we're talking about the hierarchy of the whole system. The Yidden are, this is really how it's meant to be, is Melech Mashiach. He's called Melech Mashiach. Who's he the Melech of? Melech Yisrael. That's the point. That's where all the nations, the Umoy Sa'olam, if you look at this chart here, you see what goes above America and England and India, whatever it is. That's what it's meant to be, is that Melech HaMashiach is a man who is absolutely dedicated to the Rebbeinu Sholem. Mamash, dedicated to the Rebbeinu Sholem. And he has worked out, however he's done it, to have all of the nations in the world in his vision. And all of the nations of the world, all of the prime ministers and the kings and the presidents, etc., they work out a way, and I think we'll see how AI is going to help us a lot in this, they're going to work out a way of bringing their entire countries into the project. And once the whole, that includes all the businesses and all the people and all the resources going down into the cells and the molecules and the atoms. That's called Yehuda Tatar. That's Yehuda Tatar. And that's why we say quietly, because right now Yehuda Tatar isn't in place. What we're looking forward to, which is Melech HaMashiach, which is the inyan of Rosh Hashanah Mamash, is when the whole world is in, without any personal agendas. And that's not so difficult to understand when you realize that when you look at me as a community of cells, I'm having trillions of cells. If I'm in 100%, then that's a massive amount of stuff that's in. If my whole family's in, then that's exponentially more stuff. But what about if all of Am Yisrael's in? That's the key. That's the whole key, because we're that top part of the strata. We're the highest part of creation, which is a massive responsibility. But because we're the interface. What the definition of Yisrael is, the way I understand it, what I've learned is a human being with an neshama, with a nefesh elokis. Yeah, a human being is the crown of creation. A human being is the crown of creation. Yisrael, a Yid, is that has attached to it a chelik of the Creator. That's why it's called a chelik elokai mimal. So what is a Yid? A Yid is a being that is part creation and part Creator. And that's really funny because that's really what the Notzim said. They just chose one of us as opposed to all of us, as opposed to the nation. God incarnate, yeah? That's what Am Yisrael is, the Notzim. The Notzim, they said that God was incarnated into one man, one Jew. We say, we call that the Shechina Kadosha, and we say, no, it's not true. God is incarnated into that is what the point of the Jew is. The point of the Jew is the glue that binds Creator to creation. And once that's done, so now we need all of creation running, there needs to be creation. So who's more important? The Umas Oilam or the Yidden? If it wasn't for the Umas Oilam, there'd be no purpose to the Yidden. If it wasn't for the Yidden, there'd be no purpose to the Umas Oilam. It's to ask that question in the first place is a babyish, immature, fragmented way of looking at reality. It comes from Klippa. That question is rooted in Klippa, which means fragmentation. So when we understand that Yisrael is that being that is a chelik creator and a chelik creation, now it makes sense we've got all these mitzvahs. Because when we're mevatel the humanity, our human aspect, to the godly aspect, yeah, and the human aspect is with its foot firmly in this world, the whole thing comes together and we have a oneness. And that's called Baruch. That is like the Inyan of a bracha. That's the difference between Amen and Baruch Shemoi. The journey of a bracha describes this whole process. We say Baruch Ato Hashem Elokeinu Melech Ha'olam Shehakol Niyeh B'dvaro. Yeah. The halacha is you say Baruch Ato Hashem, and you say Baruch Shemoi. He and his name, they're separate. Baruch Shemoi. He is blessed, his name is blessed. They're separate. There's two things here, him and his name. Elokeinu melech ha'olam she'akol niyeh b'dvaroi. I brought that all the way down. We say Amen. What's Amen? Amen is 91, which is a shield of Havaya and Adnas, no? That is the concept of his name and him being one. And now, Baruch Hashem, I just remembered, we'll finish off with that question we asked at the beginning. What's the Indian of Amen Yehei Shmei Rabba, Mavuach Le'olam Amen Mayo? What we call this organization, which is called Malchus, what's another word for that?
Shechina?
What?
Shechina?
But you can argue that out maybe, but a word that really encapsulates that. Shame. Name. Your name. Your name is your Malchus. That's called Shame or Malchus. That's the word, that's the code word in Chassidus for this concept of your organization. That's called your name. You have a name. You're not your name. You have a name. That's why it was called the Baal Shem Tov. What does it mean, Tov? Tov means transparent. Yeah? Surrendered or transparent. It means it has no sense of individual, no sense of independent pleasure or self. How do you say it, yeah? So now, the Baal Shem Tov, he was the one who had the shame which was Tov. His name was transparent to him. He was the Baal Shem Tov. We're looking forward to when the name becomes transparent to Hashem, which means the world becomes an accurate representation of the Ribono Shel Olam. That's when the whole world is doing Ratzon Hashem. That's what we're looking forward to. That's the day that B'yom Yeh Hashem Echad U'Shmo Echad, when him and his name is one. And that's why we say, Amen Yehei Shmei Rabba Mavurach Le'olam Amen Mayo. And this comes back to something you just said. What's the inyan of Havrocha, of Baruch?
Source.
Baruch is, by the way, Baruch is referring to Arich, if anybody who's in the partial Kabbalah, yeah. But the word Baruch is also used for Havrocha in Kilayim, in all of Zvorim. Yeah, the inyan of Havrocha is where you take a branch from a tree, yeah, you stuff it into the ground, and then you wait a little bit, and it eventually pops up and becomes another. It's the inyan of extension. That's what Arich is. Arich is the kesher. Yeah, Arich Ampin is the kesher that is mechaber him b'chvoid v'atzmoi with creation. Yeah, let's say. So the inyan of Baruch. That's what we're saying. Amen. Yehei Shmei Rabba. Your name, which is Rabba. Rabba is a multiplicity. Amen. Yehei Shmei Rabba means riboy. So your name, Hashem, is a massive riboy. Look at the riboy just in this room. Look at the amount of people, the amount of books, the amount of everything in this room. It's a tremendous riboy. Just this room. Yeah. Forget all of creation. Yeah. So that's Shmei Rabba Mavurach. It should be Mavurach, meaning that you should flow into that. That's like Lahavdil of Elafim Havdalas, when Stanley and all the chevra in the Amazon, mailroom are 100% synced in with Jeff. Lahavdil. You understand what we're saying? We're the guys in the mailroom, yeah? Some of us might be the guys, maybe, some of us are much higher up in the organisation within the Yidden. But that's the way that I understand how this works. That's what Rosh Hashanah is. Rosh Hashanah is deciding that you're going to put down the telephone. And you're like, Hashem, I know that I haven't been delivering what I've been meant to be delivering in the way that I should be delivering it, yeah. And that's going to change. That's the avodah of Rosh Hashanah.